My name is Catherine, and at 34, I still live in our family home with my mother after my father passed away 3 years ago. Although the solitude is overwhelming, I made the choice to stay with my mom, feeling it would be too risky to leave her alone. This decision has kept me at home for the past 3 years. During this time, an unsettling incident occurred when the last people I wanted to see, my brother Bob and his wife Jane, paid an uninvited visit. I've known Bob all my life, and Jane entered the picture during their dating years when Bob would often bring her home on vacations. To be honest, I can't seem to forget the torment they caused me. Bob and Jane had a long history of picking on me, using my vulnerabilities for their amusement. With our parents often away at work, weekends became the perfect opportunity for them to play cruel pranks. Our family home, an expansive mansion built by our CEO father, became the stage for many of their tormenting games. One day, they tricked me into hiding in a closet for a game of hide and seek. They then stuffed the closet with items, leaving me trapped until just before our parents returned. The mess it created led to my mother scolding me, unaware that the situation had been engineered by Bob and Jane. Though this particular game stopped after my mother caught them in the act, their behavior didn't change. I resented not only Bob and Jane but also my parents, who seemed indifferent to what I was going through. In middle school, their cruelty escalated, destroying my school uniform, defacing my textbooks, and ruining my bedding. Later, I learned this behavior stemmed from their own frustration with poor grades and parental punishment. Amid the chaos in my room, devastated and confused, I often wondered why no one ever stepped in to help. The breaking point came one evening when, after refusing to join the family for dinner, my mother discovered the full extent of the destruction. My tearful plea for escape revealed the depth of my despair. No one ever helps me. Bob and Jane destroy everything, from my toys to my school supplies, and no one stands up for me. I can't stay here anymore. Mom and Dad won't help. That was the first time I truly broke down in front of my family. Until then, I had silently endured my tears, hiding them away. But now, they poured out in full view, like a child desperate for attention. My mother, seeing me in this state, embraced me and expressed regret for everything that had happened. Even Bob, witnessing my distress, seemed to recognize the seriousness of the situation. He tried to leave, but my father stopped him, gripping his collar firmly. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" My father's voice was calm, yet terrifying. Bob tried to downplay their actions, claiming it was just a silly game that went too far. "Destruction of property is a crime," my father countered evenly. "You need to understand what that means and make it right." Bob protested, citing his status as a minor, but my father reminded him that parents are held responsible for their children's actions. With a heavy sigh, my father suggested Bob go live with his uncle, my father's younger brother, known for his strict and unforgiving nature. He was feared by all the neighborhood kids, like a boogeyman. While he was kind to well-behaved children like me, he had no patience for troublemakers like Bob and Jane. Predictably, Bob rejected the suggestion with outrage, claiming he would change. "I've heard that before." My father's voice was resolute. "From locking Caven in the closet to chasing her, throwing bugs at her. Every time, you promised to stop, but you never did. You can't keep hurting our family, even if you're family. Don't come back to this house." With that, my father grabbed Bob by the scruff of his neck and expelled him from our home. Later, I learned how angry my parents were, but despite their reprimands, Bob seemed oblivious to the gravity of his actions and continued to torment me. It became clear to me that Bob was beyond help. Some people, like him and Jane, couldn't understand the simplest principles of respect or decency. It was a harsh truth to accept. Bob had originally planned to attend university at our father's expense, but after witnessing his behavior, my father intervened, foreseeing that Bob would continue to hurt others in that environment. Instead, Bob went to work at our uncle's company right after high school. It was clear that Bob was eager to escape his uncle's supervision. After graduation, he and Jane hastily rented an apartment, fully aware that neither their parents nor our uncle would help cover the costs. Sometime later, Bob unexpectedly asked me to lend him money. At the time, I was still in high school and hadn't yet taken on a part-time job. The money I had saved up, which Bob had stolen during our time living together, had been reimbursed by my parents thanks to a detailed ledger I kept. Despite having the money, I had no intention of giving it to him. "Aren't you ashamed to ask your little sister for money? I don't even have extra cash." There's no way I'm lending you anything. I immediately informed my parents of his request, and they were furious. They assured me it would no longer offer him any assistance. I believed it was time for Bob and Jane to face the consequences of their actions and learn how to live independently. I focused on my studies, worked hard, and eventually graduated from college. I joined a company where I continued to grow professionally. Busy with my life, I had almost forgotten about Bob, until one day I received an invitation to his wedding. Of course, Jane was the bride. I thought to myself, so they're finally tying the knot. As my parents and I debated whether to attend my brother's wedding, a few days before the big day, my father collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. Though he'd always been frail, it was the first time he'd fallen ill in such a severe way, and it left both my mother and me in a state of panic. I immediately reached out to my brother for support, but he coldly replied, "I'm about to get married. Don't bother me right now." Even when I told him that our father had been hospitalized, he dismissed it, claiming our father had just tripped and urged us not to miss the wedding. Sadly, not long after, our father passed away, and of course, a wake and funeral had to be arranged. My mother and I informed my brother that we wouldn't be attending his wedding under the circumstances, even though he kept pushing us to show up. We decided to stay home and focus on our loss. We also let Jane's parents know about the situation, and while they were sympathetic, my brother and Jane accused us of being disrespectful for not attending the wedding. The voicemail they left on our phones was so outrageous that it made me question who the real disrespectful ones were. While we were busy with our father's funeral, Bob and Jane carried on with their wedding, seemingly oblivious to our loss. From that moment on, I never said it out loud, but I knew my relationship with Bob was beyond repair. Out of nowhere, my brother showed up at our door, claiming to have a delivery. I was shocked when he and Jane barged in, dragging large suitcases behind them. "What's the rush?" I asked. He acted as though he'd forgotten our father's strict warning to never set foot in our house again. Without hesitation, they dumped their luggage in the hallway and started demanding that my mother and I leave the house immediately. "What's going on?" "Isn't Mom diagnosed with dementia?" I was stunned. "This mansion isn't fit for someone like her or a failure like you who never gets anywhere. It should belong to people like Jane and me, so pack up and leave right now." I couldn't believe my ears. 3 years had passed since our father's death, and Bob had never apologized, visited the grave, or tried to make things right. And now he was demanding the family home, assuming our mother had dementia and planning to evict us. I was speechless when my mother walked into the room, confused by the scene unfolding before her. "Catherine, what's going on?" she asked. Seeing Bob, she said something so unexpected that it left me in disbelief. "Who are you? If you're a stranger, please leave." She was calm, but my brother and Jane mocked her, claiming it was all part of her dementia. "See, this is what happens every time we call her. Her dementia must be worsening. You deal with her." "But I'm taking the house," Bob said coldly, claiming ownership of our home as the eldest son. Bob strutted deeper into the house, and Jane followed, echoing his arrogance. "Take the old lady and get out." "I never want to see you again," she sneered, rushing to my mother's side. I checked to see if my mother was okay, but it was clear that we were being forced out. We had to leave, leaving behind all our old belongings. Luckily, a friend heard about our situation and offered us a vacant house he had since he was abroad. His cousin had been taking care of it, but with the cousin relocating, the timing was perfect. We moved in, and at last, we felt some peace. My mother, laughing and relieved, suggested we sell the mansion. She still resented Bob and Jane's behavior, and when I asked her about Bob's claim that she had dementia, she revealed something surprising. 2 years ago, Bob and Jane had asked her for money, and when they didn't attend our father's funeral or contact her after that, my mother had pretended not to know them. She treated them like strangers, which they took as a sign of dementia. Realizing they had wrongly presumed her condition, my mother decided to sell the mansion. A senior executive from my father's company, where I was training to take over, expressed interest in buying it. I explained the situation, and the executive agreed that we couldn't let Bob and Jane control the house. The sale went smoothly, but a week later, my phone and my mother's phone started buzzing nonstop. We ignored the calls for about half an hour before answering. Jane was on the other line, furious that we hadn't responded sooner. She ranted about how strangers were trying to kick them out of the mansion. I couldn't help but laugh and calmly told her that my mother, the rightful owner, had sold the house to a new buyer. Jane was stunned, insisting that Bob, as the eldest son, owned the house. I chuckled again and explained that being the eldest didn't guarantee ownership. Jane seemed to think that being married to Bob would elevate her status. But I quickly reminded her of their lowly positions at the company. I laughed again when she learned that Bob wouldn't inherit the company either. Desperate, she begged for money, and with a final laugh, I ended the call. Later, I heard from my uncle that Bob and Jane stubbornly refused to leave the mansion, so he had to personally go and pick them up. They were hired by his company and put through intense training, which scared them so much they cried. He then sent them to a remote mountain retreat, where they were kept under the supervision of one of his acquaintances due to their erratic behavior. Despite their attempts to escape, they were caught each time. My uncle warned them that if they didn't shape up, they'd be left there permanently. As for me, my fiancé, who works abroad, manages the house while we plan our wedding. My mother and uncle, who supported us through everything, will be at the ceremony, but Bob and Jane won't be invited. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Stay stunned.